I was stirring sugar into my coffee when my phone buzzed. A video message from Mrs. Calloway, our old neighbor. Just seeing her name made my fingers freeze. We hadn't spoken in years. The message had no greeting, no context, just one line. "I'm so sorry about your parents. I can't believe what I saw today." My stomach dropped. I tapped the video. It was a church. St. Matthias. The same place where they dragged me every Christmas, pretending we were the perfect family. The camera zoomed in on two figures at the podium. My parents. Mom in a black lace dress, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. Dad stiff in his suit, voice cracking as he read from a paper. Behind them, a casket. And next to it, my face. A blown-up photo from my college graduation framed in white lilies. Natalie was always troubled, Dad said, voice thick with fake grief. But we loved her. We did everything we could. I nearly dropped my phone. Troubled? The only thing I'd ever done was exist while my sister Bianca stole $90K from Dad's business account to fund her influencer lifestyle. But when the money vanished, guess who took the blame? The video kept playing. Mom whimpered about my tragic accident overseas. What accident? And how they'd lost me too soon. The camera panned to the pews. Aunt Lydia, Cousin Drew, even Mrs. Calloway, who'd sent me this, dabbing real tears. They'd all shown up for my funeral. I was standing in my kitchen, very much alive. I scrubbed the video back, watched it again. Their lies didn't change. My hands shook so hard I had to grip the counter. 3 years ago, they'd kicked me out. "You're no longer our daughter," Dad had said, tossing my suitcase into the rain. Better one ruined daughter than two. I'd tried calling, texting, even mailed letters. Nothing. My number was blocked. Relatives acted like I'd never existed. Now I knew why. They'd killed me off. I pulled up my email, typed Natalie Voss death certificate. Into the search bar, it popped up instantly. Date of death, August 12th. Cause, car accident. Status, deceased. I stared at the screen, cold creeping up my spine. Then I opened Bianca's Instagram. There she was, grinning in a white dress, Dad's arm around her. The caption, "To new beginnings, and the family who never gave up on me." The photo was tagged at a luxury resort, the same resort my trust fund was supposed to pay for. My coffee went cold. I had a funeral to crash. The church parking lot was packed. Black suits, black dresses, tissues clutched in trembling hands. Sat in my car across the street, watching them file in like actors taking their places. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I'd spent all night digging, public records, bank statements, even my old social media. All wiped, memorialized. Remembering Natalie, my profile now read. Comments from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Gone too soon. We'll miss you. Lies. Every single one. The last of the mourners disappeared inside. I checked my reflection in the mirror. Dark sunglasses, a black trench coat. Would they even recognize me? 3 years of silence, 3 years of pretending I didn't exist. I stepped out of the car. The church doors were heavy, groaning as I pushed them open. The scent of lilies hit me first, thick and suffocating. Then the sound. My father's voice, echoing through the pews. Natalie struggled in her final years, he said, shaking his head like a grieving saint. But we take comfort knowing she's at peace now. I walked down the aisle, slowly, deliberately. Child gasped first, then whispers erupted like wildfire. Heads turned. My cousin Mitch dropped his program, his face draining of color. My mother's head snapped up, our eyes locked. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor. The room fell silent. I stopped at the foot of the casket. Empty. Of course. And faced them all. "You forgot to invite me," I said, pulling off my sunglasses. The priest staggered back. Bianca let out a choked noise, her perfect manicure digging into her husband's arm. Dad's mouth opened, then closed. "No," rehearsed speech for this. I reached into my coat and tossed a stack of papers onto the casket. Passport stamps, bank records, lease agreements. "I've been in Chicago," I said. "Alive, working, paying taxes. Funny how death doesn't stop the IRS. A phone camera flashed. Somewhere. Good. Let them record this. Bianca shot up from her seat. "This is sick," she hissed. How could I? I laughed, cold and sharp. "You stole from Dad, you framed me, and when that wasn't enough, you buried me." Dad finally found his voice. "Natalie, please." "No." I turned to the crowd, their horrified faces drinking in every word. "Ask them about the trust fund, the one Grandma left me. Ask them when it got transferred to Bianca." Aunt Lydia's hand flew to her mouth. I smiled. 6 months after my death. The doors burst open behind me. 2 police officers stepped inside. "Mr. and Mrs. Voss," one said, "we need to ask you some questions about fraud." Bianca screamed, and just like that, the funeral became a crime scene. Chaos erupted. Bianca lunged for the officers, pearls snapping as they caught her wrists. "This is a mistake!" she shrieked. Dad turned to me, his face purple with rage. "You ungrateful little—" The officer cut him off. "Sir, we have a warrant to seize your financial records." He held up a paper stamped with an official seal. "Regarding the falsification of a death certificate and fraudulent transfer of assets." Mom collapsed into the front pew, sobbing. Real tears this time. The church buzzed with panicked whispers as more phones came out, recording everything. I stood perfectly still, watching my family unravel. Then I noticed movement near the altar. Bianca's. Husband Garrett was slipping toward a side exit, his tailored suit jacket flapping open. Something glinted in his inner pocket. A flash drive. I moved without thinking. "Hey," I shouted, pointing. "He's trying to run." One officer spun around just as Garrett bolted. They tackled him at the door, the flash drive skittering across the marble. The other officer picked it up, frowning. "What's on this?" Garrett's face went sheet white. "Nothing. I crossed my arms. "Why don't we check?" The officer plugged it into his tablet. A spreadsheet popped up. Dates, amounts, code names. The color drained from Dad's face. "Those are offshore accounts," the officer muttered. He looked up sharply. "Mr. Voss, care to explain how $250,000 from your daughter's trust fund ended up in the Cayman Islands?" The room erupted again. Reporters who'd come for the funeral spectacle suddenly had breaking news. Aunt Lydia stood abruptly, her chair screeching. "You told us Natalie died penniless. You made us pity you." I met Bianca's eyes across the chaos. For the first time in our lives, she had nothing to say. The officers started reading rights. As they led my parents away in handcuffs, Dad turned back with one last snarl. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "I already regret being related to you." Outside, cameras flashed. I kept walking, past the gawking crowd, past the news vans, toward the bus stop at the end of the street. Then, a voice called my name. Mrs. Calloway hurried after me, her funeral hat askew. "Natalie, wait." She pressed an envelope into my hands. "Your grandmother left this for you. I was supposed to give it to you on your 25th birthday, but—" I opened it. A key fell into my palm, to Grandma's lake house, the one Dad always said was sold. Mrs. Calloway squeezed my arm. "She knew, honey. She always knew." I stared at the key, then at the police cars pulling away. The funeral was over. My life was just beginning. The lake house key burned in my pocket all the way to the bus station. Grandma's handwriting on the envelope had been shaky, but firm. "For Natalie only, they can't take this too." I almost missed my stop staring at it. The property was exactly as I remembered: weathered cedar siding, a wraparound porch, the old tire swing still hanging from the oak tree. But the for sale sign Dad had bragged about getting top dollar for? Nowhere in sight. The key turned smoothly in the lock. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light as I stepped inside. Everything smelled like pine needles and Grandma's lavender. Sachets. Her favorite quilt still draped the couch. Family photos still lined the mantel, including ones of me they'd supposedly lost. Then I noticed it. A stack of papers on the kitchen table, weighed down by a snow globe I'd made her in third. Grade, the top sheet was a legal document dated 3 days before Grandma died. Last will and testament addendum. My hands shook as I read, "In the event my son attempts to disinherit Natalie, everything bypasses him entirely. The lake house, the remaining trust funds, and my shares in Voss Industries go directly to her." A choked laugh escaped me. She'd mepos ace known. She'd known what they would try to do. I flipped to the next page. Bank statements showing monthly withdrawals from Dad's business account. Not stolen by Bianca. Transferred. With Dad's authorization, the final page stopped my heart. A handwritten note in Grandma's looping script. Natalie. If you're reading this, they've shown their true colors. The account numbers below contain what's left of your inheritance. The password is your birthday. And sweetheart, make them pay. The floor creaked behind me. I whirled around, clutching the papers to my chest. Garrett stood in the doorway, his designer shoes tracking mud on Grandma's clean floors. His tie was loose now, his hair disheveled from running. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? He panted. I backed toward the fireplace, my hand closing around the iron poker. The police let you go? He smirked. Bianca posted bail. We're filing harassment charges against you. I barked a laugh. For what? Being alive. For breaking into private property. He pulled out his phone, filming me. See? Trespassing. Vandalism. My fingers tightened on the poker. This is my house. Prove it. I could see his plan now. Get me arrested, discredit me before I could expose their fraud. Classic Bianca move. Then the snow globe exploded at his feet. We both jumped. Mrs. Calloway stood in the doorway. Grandma's antique shotgun leveled at Garrett. I believe the young lady asked you to leave. Garrett's phone clattered to the floor. You're insane. Click. The safety switched off. Try me, Mrs. Calloway said sweetly. He ran. I sank into a kitchen chair, the adrenaline crashing. Mrs. Calloway set down the shotgun and patted my shoulder. Your grandmother kept that behind the flour canister for unwanted solicitors. I stared at the will in my hands. They stole everything. Not everything. She opened the pantry, revealing a wall safe I'd never seen before. Shall we see what else she left you? The safe door creaked open. Inside sat stacks of cash and one final envelope. The stacks of cash were neatly bound with Grandma's familiar lavender ribbon, $50,000 in total. But the envelope made my breath catch. It was addressed in her handwriting, but with a date from just last year. Impossible. She'd been gone for 5 years. I tore it open. A newspaper clipping fluttered out. A society page photo of Bianca's engagement party. Someone had circled Garrett's hand in red pen, zooming in on the watch he was wearing. Grandma's note underneath. That's your grandfather's Patek Philippe. I buried it with him. Ask your father how Garrett got it. My blood ran cold. Mrs. Calloway gasped. Oh, sweet Lord, that means... The back door slammed open. Bianca stood framed in the doorway, her perfect blowout frizzing in the lake humidity. 2 police officers flanked her. There she is, she shrieked, pointing at me with a manicured finger. The trespasser I told you about. The older cop sighed. Ma'am, we're responding to a report of... Save it, I said, thrusting Grandma's will at them. This proves I own the property, and this... I grabbed the bank statements. Proves my sister committed fraud. Bianca's face twisted. Those are fake. She's been stalking our family for years. The younger cop frowned at the documents. This looks official? Check the county records, I challenged. You'll find the death certificate they forged. And while you're at it, I grabbed the engagement photo. Ask them how a man who supposedly never met my grandfather is wearing his buried watch. Bianca lunged for the photo. You psychotic. The older cop caught her arm. Ma'am, step back. That's when I noticed it. The slight rounding of her stomach beneath her designer dress. The way her hand instinctively flew to protect it. Pregnant. Of course. I laughed out loud. Oh, this is perfect. What's the plan, Bianca? Fake my death so your kid gets my inheritance too? Her face went scarlet. You don't know anything. Mrs. Calloway suddenly marched to the hall closet, returning with a dusty shoebox. Actually, she knows everything. She dumped the contents on the table. Dozens of bank receipts, each showing transfers from Dad's account to Bianca's, going back years. Your grandmother had private investigators, Mrs. Calloway said quietly. She knew about the embezzlement, the lies, even the pregnancy. Bianca looked ready to combust. Those are enough. The older cop radioed for backup. We're taking everyone downtown. As they led Bianca out, she turned back with tears in her eyes. You've ruined everything. I held up the watch photo. No, sis, you did that yourself. The cops left with promises to return for official statements. Mrs. Calloway made tea while I sorted through the rest of the shoebox until my fingers brushed something metallic at the bottom. A USB drive, labeled, "For the police." I plugged it into Grandma's ancient desktop. Security footage filled the screen. Dad's office, time-stamped from last year. Bianca and Garrett stood over his desk as Dad handed them a folder. "The paperwork's done," Dad said on the video. "Natalie's legally dead in 3 states. Just keep quiet until after the will clears probate." Garrett grinned. "And the trust fund?" "All yours," Dad said. "Consider it a wedding present." The video ended. Mrs. Calloway's teacup shattered on the floor. I picked up the landline and dialed the detective who'd arrested my parents. "Sir, you're going to want to see this." Detective Hayes arrived within the hour, his wrinkled suit and coffee breath suggesting he'd come straight from the station. But the way his eyes locked onto Grandma's photo above the mantel told a different story. "You knew her," I said, watching his reaction. He ran a hand over his stubble. "Clara and I went way back." A pause. "She called me the week before she died. Said she'd left something here that would protect you." Mrs. Calloway made a small noise of surprise. "You're that? Hayes? The one who helped her change the locks when your father tried to empty the house?" He nodded grimly. "Yeah, that was me." I pushed the USB toward him. "She left more than that." We watched the footage together. Hayes' jaw tightened when Dad appeared on screen. "That's not just fraud," he muttered. "That's conspiracy to commit." He pulled out his phone, dialing rapidly. "Jenkins, get a warrant for Garrett Rhodes' office, and pull all financials on Voss Industries going back 10 years. While he spoke, I noticed something odd about Grandma's desk. The bottom drawer was slightly ajar. Inside, I found a leather-bound ledger labeled Bianca's Real Expenses. Page after page of withdrawals with notes in Grandma's handwriting. $15K. Car accident, no police report. $28K, school loans, paid to Vegas casino. $50K, startup investment, Garrett's mistress's apartment. The final entry froze my blood. $200K, Natalie's funeral, transferred to Garrett's Cayman account. Hayes whistled low. This changes everything. With this plus the video, we're looking at felony embezzlement. RICO charges if they were laundering through the business. The landline rang. Mrs. Calloway answered, then paled. "It's the jail. Your father wants to make a deal." Hayes and I exchanged glances. Dad's voice crackled through the speakerphone, tinny and desperate. "Natalie, listen, it was all Bianca's idea. She and Garrett pressured me." I laughed bitterly. "Funny, the video shows you handing them the folder." A long silence. Then, "They dug up your grandfather's grave," he blurted. "Last year, Garrett needed collateral for a loan and Bianca knew where the will mentioned the watch." Mrs. Calloway gasped. Hayes started typing furiously. I felt suddenly lightheaded. "You let them desecrate Grandpa's—" "No, I didn't know until after." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But I have proof. Security footage from the cemetery. Bianca's wearing the same dress as in that stupid engagement photo." Hayes snatched the phone. "Where is it?" "My home safe. Code 362436. Bianca's measurements. From her modeling days." A beat. "Natalie, I can make this right." I hung up. Hayes was already heading for the door. "Stay here. I'll send a unit to—" Tires screeched outside. Through the window, I saw Garrett's BMW skid to a stop. Trunk open. Bianca jumped out, screaming into her phone. "Pack a go bag. We need to—" She spotted us watching and froze. Then she reached into the trunk. Metal glinted in the afternoon sun. The shovel came out of the trunk first, rusted and caked with dried earth, then the pickaxe. Bianca charged toward the porch like a woman possessed, tools swinging wildly. "You ruined everything," she screamed, her designer shoes sinking into the mud. Hayes shoved me behind him just as the first shovel strike shattered the screen door. Glass rained onto Grandma's braided rug. "Bianca Voss!" Hayes barked, badge raised. "Drop the weapons now!" She swung again, panting. "You don't understand. That money was mine. Dad promised." I grabbed the fireplace poker just as she lunged through the broken door. The shovel clipped Hayes' shoulder. He grunted in pain. That's when I saw it. Mud on Bianca's hem. Fresh. "The cemetery?" I breathed. You went back to hide the evidence. Her wild eyes locked onto the ledger in Mrs. Calloway's hands. Give me that. Swung the poker, not at her, at the snow globe on the shelf above her head. Glass and water exploded downward, making her shriek and stumble back, right into Hayes' waiting cuffs. Bianca Voss, he wheezed, blood seeping through his shirt. You're under arrest for assaulting an officer, grave desecration, and no. She thrashed as backup units came pouring up the driveway. That money was supposed to be for my baby? I stepped forward, shaking. You mean the baby you got pregnant with after stealing my inheritance? Her face twisted. You were supposed to stay dead. The cops dragged her away, still screaming about trust funds and unfairness. Hayes collapsed into Grandma's rocking chair, clutching his shoulder. Call an ambulance and the DA. He nodded to the ledger. That's enough for indictments all the gym way up. Mrs. Calloway brought bandages while I dialed 911. That's when I noticed the last page of the ledger, one I'd missed before. A sticky note in Grandma's handwriting. Natalie. If you're reading this, they've shown their true colors. The lake house is yours. The remaining trust funds are in a Swiss account. Details below. And darling, the real will is hidden behind the note ended mid-sentence. I rushed to the mantel, running my fingers along the vintage mirror frame. Something clicked. The mirror swung open. Inside the hidden compartment, a single sheet of paper with a gold seal. Grandma's real final will. Everything. The business, the properties, the remaining millions left solely to me with one extraordinary condition. If any family member contests this will, their share automatically converts to a donation in their name to the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. I burst into hysterical laughter. Of course she'd known. Of course she'd planned for this. Outside the ambulance arrived. Reporters swarmed the property. The cops found the freshly disturbed earth at the cemetery with Grandpa's watch box still half buried. But in Grandma's kitchen, with her quilt around my shoulders and her final gift in my hands, I did something I hadn't done since I was 16. Felt safe. 3 months later, the probate judge ruled in my favor. Dad got 5 years. Bianca got 7, plus a lovely nursery in the penitentiary. Garrett turned state's evidence and fled to Belize. And me? I'm sitting on Grandma's porch right now, watching the sunset over the lake. The my house, the my life. Funny how death works. Sometimes you have to die in someone else's story to finally come alive in your own.